The baby's parents left him behind. After growing up and becoming wealthy, he had an unexpected guest. The next story you will hear takes place in Estonia, namely in the town of Risti. This actual incident is without a doubt one of our favorites, as it had such a surprising conclusion. Although the narrative took place in the 1990s, it was released in 2003. From the age of 2, Roman was raised by his maternal grandmother. Sadly, the boy's parents, who had turned into alcoholics, left him behind. Their young boy was left alone in their flat. They discovered him screaming and filthy there. They also departed for several months without paying their rent. The grandma had to deal with this, and she had to give up nearly all of her funds to avoid looking bad in front of the landlord. She may sue her daughter otherwise. Regretfully, the grandma was solely dependent on her pension. Nevertheless, her funds for the upcoming month had run out. Even if her share of this obligation was tiny, she still needed to find a means to make money. She didn't want to surrender him to an orphanage, even though it would have been better. She was terribly saddened by the thought of how much she loved her grandson. She so went to work in the fields at her age. She discovered the pension was insufficient when it came. The cost of daycare, education, and food has increased. Then, she had to continue laboring in the sweltering sun or pouring rain in the fields. But occasionally, Roman's folks had come over. Maybe they regretted leaving their son, the grandmother thought. She was really happy, but her happiness quickly gave way to extreme disappointment. They came only to take out a loan. They promised to repay the money as quickly as possible and stated they had to pay off a debt. But the months went by, and the elderly, destitute widow never received her money. However, her daughter returned one day. Sadly, the elderly woman's happiness was short-lived since her request for extra money was, instead of receiving her money back. Her daughter informed her that she was struggling this time. Due to a medical condition, her spouse needed the funds. The generous elderly lady handed him what little she had, and she hasn't heard from them in a very long time. Little Roman, meantime, was growing up and learning for himself with the help of his grandma. In school, he also received the top marks. However, her father never showed up at her front door until many years later. The father shoved Roman away as he tried to hug him. The guy who had deserted the kid, Roman's father, returned to the grandmother's home to request money, but this time it was for a very worthy purpose. His wife was reportedly in the hospital. The man said she had a severe case of pneumonia. He informed the elderly woman that they were unable to pay for the highly expensive medications that she had to take. At that point, the elder mother gave her all of her retirement income each month along with her meager savings, all the while hoping that her daughter would get better quickly. She may regrettably lose her work at that point, therefore she was unable to go to the hospital. But she was able to do so after 2 days, so she headed to the hospital with her grandson in tow. However, she discovered something worse when they got there. "Miss, please let me see my daughter," she said to the nurse. "She is here, according to my son-in-law, because she has pneumonia." When the nurse inquired for her details, she answered right away saying, "Yes, she has arrived, ma'am, but not because of pneumonia, but because they found her completely inebriated on the street. She had to go through detox, and once she recovered, the cops brought her to prison, but I knew she could get out more if she posted bond. We haven't heard from her since, ma'am, so I'm not sure." It left the elderly woman in tears. Her own daughter treats her like this. How is it possible? Why had all of this been a deception to the poor lady, who felt bad about not giving her daughter a proper education? She never failed to provide her the finest. She never missed anything. She felt her kid had failed at something since she couldn't believe her daughter was acting this way. Roman observed all of her suffering throughout that period. Though he appreciated all his grandma done for him, he also felt terrible for her. He therefore tried his hardest to make her smile whenever she was down. He was hired concurrently with receiving his university admission. "Dear grandmother, don't work anymore," he advised her at that very job. "I've had enough from you. I will be the one keeping an eye on you going forward." It had been years since he'd seen his folks. Tragic events, sadly, broke Roman's heart. When his cherished grandma realized that her daughter had not even paid her son a visit and that she did not even care that much about him, she was overcome with despair. The old woman's life was taken by the depression since she was unable to cope. Only Roman and his neighbors were present for the final farewell on the day of the burial. Roman notified the daughter and son-in-law through a friend, but they did not accompany her for her farewell. He cried and was deeply hurt by that loss. Roman eventually completed his studies, won the distinction of being the city's top architect, and even started his own company in memory of his grandma. He gradually grew to be an extremely rich man. Since he originated from a very humble family, the fact that Roman had altered his life had been known, but his humility remained the same. He even provided aid to others in need. So his parents heard the news. Thus his father made the decision to visit Roman's home one day. He stopped him and said, "What do you want, sir?" after quickly seeing that the home was guarded by a security guard. "I am here to visit my son. I must speak with him. It's crucial. Let me in." Once more the guard inquired, "Yes, but I need to know what you want." "Look, our beloved son needs to assist us with medication and surgery since my wife, Roman's mother, is extremely sick in the hospital. You must help us. Please, we need the money." "Outside there's a person who claims to be your father," the guard stated to Roman over the intercom. "He tells you that your mother is critically sick and asks for your assistance. They require cash." When Roman heard those final words, resentment and sorrow overwhelmed him. He recalled how his cherished grandmother, who toiled to earn a few pennies, donated it to them without considering whether she needed it or not, so they might be better, and they never expressed gratitude to her. In addition, they even betrayed her. He therefore had the response to his own father at that same time, or the response his grandma ought to have given him in the outset. "Tell him that I'm not going to offer him anything," Roman retorted. "All I had was my granny, and nobody else. I was abandoned by my parents, and it still doesn't alter. That individual is lying, in my opinion. My father is not here. I'll have to contact the cops if you don't tell him to go." "Sir, I think you already heard," the guard remarked to the man at that point. "There's no need to reiterate. Go now." Shaken, the man turned away, regretting his actions. This was not what he had anticipated. When he got to the hospital, his wife was there, in desperate need of medication and quick surgery since her liver had been injured. This time, it was true that the woman was sick, but he created a depressing reality for himself by repeatedly lying to his own family. They have always desired seclusion and the freedom to live their own lives at the expense of others. Now have a look at them. Life handed them a difficult lesson. Definitely a tale that teaches us a lot. Sometimes, because of their love for them, or just because they don't know how to appreciate them, kids would lie to or abuse their parents. Unfortunately, some parents don't stop this because they think they're doing appropriately, which is admirable, but they are unaware that what they are doing is incorrect. A well-known saying goes, "If you don't give, don't take them away, and don't abandon your son either. You can regret it later."